190 received feedback. Everyone, stop the wild beasts and don't let them leave. Fight around Qingniao. Qingniao rushed out and swung its staff at the large hound. Bang! As if playing golf, the big hound flew into the sky and disappeared into the darkness. Bang! A black shadow fell from the sky and landed heavily on the ground. The surrounding soldiers and wild beasts looked over. It was a large hound. Many of the wild beasts looked up at the sky. There was nothing. How did he fall? Qingniao sent a large hound flying and killed it instantly. The surrounding wild beasts were stunned. The giant scarlet bat reacted the fastest and flapped its wings, preparing to fly away. 2 people jumped on it and pressed it down. They couldn't care less about being sucked dry by the giant scarlet bat. They shouted at Qingniao, "Come quickly!" Qingniao ran over and smashed the staff at the giant scarlet bat's body. Fang Ping only felt the ground shake. The giant scarlet bat's body was cut in half, and the middle section was deeply embedded in the ground. It was directly smashed into meat paste. The other wild beasts turned around and ran. Originally, they were conserving energy and were basically fighting hand-to-hand. Now, they were throwing skills out as if they were free. However, Qingniao did not care at all, charging forward against the skill. Fang Ping estimated that his attack power should have exceeded 200, and his strength should be above 10 points. This is why the faith characteristic is so powerful. The longer it lasted, the stronger it was. It was the same for the Lord's Guard's heroic longsword. Without the continuous time limit of the skill, heroic, as time passed, its strength became higher and higher. 1 or 2 strikes could kill a wild beast. Qingniao began to lead Fang Ping's team to kill in all directions. Fang Ping had nothing to do with it. He wanted to take a look at Ivan, but as the grass was burned away and the flames extinguished, the surroundings became darker and darker. He could not see anything a little further away. "Don't go too deep. Everyone, retreat!" Fang Ping shouted at them. The darkness was the home ground of wild beasts. If they were ambushed and focused on, it would not be a joke. The team retreated. Fang Ping glanced at Gran on the ground. His face was expressionless, and his breathing was calm, as if he had fallen asleep. If he hadn't been given the forbidden armor spell just now, he would have fallen asleep forever. Looking at Gran sleeping on the ground, Fang Ping suddenly recalled some scenes from movies and television dramas. The female lead disguised herself as a man and called the male lead her brother in the military camp. Later on, she was injured and fainted. During healing, she was discovered by the male lead. Fang Ping looked at Gran on the ground and had an inexplicable thought. He squatted down, swallowed, and slowly reached out to touch his chest. It was very flat. It should be a man. Fang Ping smiled. He did not know what he was thinking, but he had actually touched it. If others saw this, it would definitely be very awkward. Wait a minute. Could it be that someone had really seen it? Fang Ping slowly raised his head. There was really someone in front of him. Anthony followed Qingniao and killed 7 or 8 wild beasts along the way. They were all class 2 and 3. He was in a good mood. After a while, he heard the order to retreat. Anthony looked around and saw that it was getting darker and darker. The wall of fire had already burned into the distance, and the torches on the carriage could not reach here. It was indeed time to retreat. With Qingniao fighting in the rear, Anthony did not have to worry about anything. He quickly ran back and prepared to see Gran's situation. Anthony was the closest to Gran just now. The two of them had known each other before and had never encountered such a situation. He did not know what was wrong with him. As soon as he ran back, Anthony saw Gran lying flat on the ground. Fang Ping was squatting at the side, reaching out to touch Gran's chest, a strange smile on his face. Then, Fang Ping raised his head and met his eyes. "He's a man," Fang Ping said. "Of course I know he's a man." Anthony wanted to answer like this, but on second thought, Fang Ping seemed to be implying something. Is he telling me that he actually likes men? The last time I slept, he was also staring at me. Could it be? What should I do? I can't beat him. You, continue. I won't tell anyone. Let me off. He's a man, Fang Ping pointed at Gran and said, telling Anthony not to think too much. However, Anthony wanted to say something but hesitated. His expression was complicated. In the end, he blinked his big eyes as if he had been wronged. Fang Ping watched as he crossed his arms and shouted, "You, continue. I won't tell anyone. Just let me off." Then, he turned around and ran. What's the situation? Fang Ping was confused. He did not know what had happened. Why was Anthony always so strange? Was there something wrong with his mind? Or was it a transfer of affection or a projection? The others were returning one after another. Fang Ping stood up and waited for them. Not far away, the Lord's guards were still fighting in the darkness. Their war horses were tied with torches, and there were bright spots of light on the battlefield as they constantly passed through. Fang Ping's team was about to return to the position at the carriage when they saw the Machete City guards begin to move. With the upper hand, they began to press forward. The arrows were tied with strips of cloth soaked in kerosene. Balls of flames flew out, not to kill, but to illuminate. A long row of lizards were killed by the armor-piercing crossbow bolts. Their huge bodies lay on their sides on the ground, and there was darkness behind them. The fire arrows pierced through the night sky like a grand meteor shower and pierced the lizard's body. Light lit up the darkness. Behind them, there were wild beasts, but very few. Fang Ping was stunned. He had thought that the wild beasts were confronting the guards of Machete City. He did not expect the back to be so empty. Other than this row of corpses, there were only scattered wild beasts that roared from time to time. Where were the rest? Where did they go? Elsa shouted at Fang Ping's team. Fang Ping, look for them. Where are they? Fang Ping was helpless as well. He quickly used the special characteristics on the darkness. There was nothing behind them. They did not escape quietly. This was a little strange. The terrain of this mountain slope was relatively flat and there were no ups and downs. The characteristics should not have been missed. If they did not escape, where did they go? At the bottom of the hill were the Lord's guards. This place could also be ruled out. War horses with torches were running everywhere, so a large group of wild beasts would not pass by here. Could it be from above? Fang Ping looked up the hill. The fire above had already been extinguished. In order to let the carriage walk, the grass along the way had been cleared. The fire had not burned over, and the sky above was relatively darker. Fang Ping spun around and slowly used the special characteristics. Nothing, 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 something. Fang Ping circled more than half the way around and finally received feedback. Characteristics endowment failed. Target, golden gem beast, not the person. There they are. Fang Ping pointed with his finger and realized that the direction was not above, but behind the escort team of Machete City. The wild beasts actually circled around and went from the front to the back without being noticed. The grass behind them was not burned by the fire. If they were lying in ambush at the back, the last row of crossbowmen would only be 10 meters away from the grass. The hound would be able to bite them with a pounce. Van Helsing pointed to the rear. Turn back. Forward troops, switch to rear formation. Team 1, fire arrows. 191. The battle is over. The guards in the first row switched places with the repeating crossbowmen in the third. The repeating crossbowman in the middle fired a rocket that plunged into the grass and ignited again. There was nothing to be seen in the firelight. What was going on? Why was there nothing? Unexpectedly, a group of wild beasts was lying in ambush in the grass, preparing to launch a sudden attack. But there was nothing shown in the fire. Fang Ping, where's the wild beast you're talking about? Fang Ping had almost reached the carriage. He looked at Teacher Elsa on the top of the carriage and said, they are right here. There's no mistake. Fang Ping was also very puzzled. One of the flaws given by the characteristic was that he could not tell the distance, but he had never made a mistake. They were clearly here, so how could there be nothing? He bestowed the special characteristics further away. Characteristics endowment failed. Target adult thunder lizard, not the person. They are in front. Fang Ping pointed further ahead. It was pitch black. Are you sure? Fang Ping nodded affirmatively. I won't make a mistake. Elsa looked at Van Helsing. What are they doing over there? Van Helsing frowned slowly. Something's wrong. He suddenly jumped down from the carriage and rushed into the burning wall of fire. Su Dongsheng. He only left one last sentence. Summon the griffin. Teacher Elsa jumped onto the griffin's back and said to Fang Ping's team, wait here. The griffin charged into the darkness. Fang Ping, on the other hand, continued to use his special characteristics on the darkness. Every time he received feedback, it was from a different wild beast. They were really gathered there. Their target might really be Ivan. A few elves came out of the carriage to take a look and went in again. The members of Fang Ping's team also began to whisper to each other. That hound is also a Class 5 legendary creature. He was the one who injured Ivan at the entrance of the cave last time. That's right. Nothing will happen to Ivan, right? The hound and so many wild beasts are going over. I'm afraid it's not optimistic. Who would have thought that those wild beasts would quietly circle around? Let's wait here. Demon Hunter General Van Helsing has gone over. He's also very strong. With Ivan and the Silver Heron Tiger, Su Dongsheng, 2 legendary creatures, he'll be fine. Xin Yung bowed. Princess Sif, you're right. The wild beast has already gone around. Eldest princess, you're so amazing. How do you know everything? I told you to practice more. Didn't you hear the obvious footsteps? Woo. She rubbed her hands. Eldest princess, I'll just take good care of your daily life. Wild beasts have no interaction with humans. Clegane brought so many wild beast tribes here for one reason, Su Dongsheng. It seems that the conflict between them is greater than I thought. Princess, you know so much. Eldest princess, what should we do now? Xingyun asked. No need, just wait for the news. For now, we have nothing to do. Fang Ping's team began to deal with Gran's problem. Gran lay on the ground, motionless. The people around him were discussing what had happened to him. His breathing was normal, and there were no obvious external injuries on his body. It was as if he had fallen asleep, but the people around him tried all kinds of methods, but there was no reaction. Gran had a good relationship with a warrior. He was a trainee with average strength and did not have much of a presence. His name was Yarbo. Yarbo asked the people around him, have any of you seen a similar situation? What's going on? Could it be that he didn't sleep well? Is he too sleepy? Impossible. He should have woken up long ago. Why don't we give him a bottle of healing potion? Any illness will be resolved. Yarbo pried open his mouth and gave Gran a bottle of healing potion. There was no reaction. Let's wait for Miss Elsa to come back. Fang Ping found a place to sit down. He looked at the blazing fire in front of him and continued to use the special characteristics on the darkness. As long as it failed, there would be no consumption. It could be used infinitely. It was very convenient. Fang Ping had talked to Andre about characteristics before. Only then did he know that everyone's characteristics had conditions to be used. Fang Ping's special trait was that it consumed money. Andre's required the consumption of energy fragments. Qing Niao's self-healing required more than half of its energy, and it consumed energy. William's blindfold required it to cover his eyes. As for King Augustus, his characteristic was also to consume money. Everyone's characteristics were different. Generally speaking, the stronger the characteristic, the higher the requirements and the greater the consumption. Fang Ping looked at the darkness and received messages. There were all kinds of wild beasts, including Teacher Elsa and Van Helsing, but Ivan was not among them. Forget it, I don't want to watch anymore. There's nothing I can do anyway. Fang Ping closed his eyes. It was more practical to accumulate energy. After a while, Fang Ping heard the noise around him and opened his eyes. Van Helsing walked back with Ivan, with Elsa following beside him. Ivan didn't look too good, and his clothes and armor were tattered, but he was back after all. As long as he did not die, it was not a big deal. Andre stood beside Fang Ping and looked into the distance. The demon flame chimera hasn't returned. While Ivan was fighting the giant hound, the demon flame chimera was also fighting the chimera leader in the air. But now, Ivan had returned, but the demon flame chimera did not follow. The demon flame chimera is a permanent energy creature, right? Fang Ping asked. Andre looked up at the sky and nodded. A permanent energy creature was different from a skill. If he died, he was really gone. Fang Ping used characteristics on the sky. He did not see the demonic flame chimera. After coming to this world for more than 2 months, every time Ivan appeared, he would appear with the demon flame chimera. The demon flame chimera was about to become Ivan's symbol. It had a huge body, 3 different heads, and golden fur that was like flames on its body. It swayed with the wind and looked especially domineering. Disappearing just like that, Fang Ping felt that it was really a pity, even if he was only made of energy. He believed that Ivan's feelings for him would only deepen. Ivan must be very sad now. Roar, Mare, Li. A high-pitched cry came from behind him. Fang Ping turned around, and a black shadow appeared in the night sky. The demon flame chimera flew over from the other side. Its speed was slow, and its sharp claws grabbed a similarly huge corpse. Its 3 heads were lowered. The chimera leader. If Fang Ping remembered correctly, it should be a Class 5 legendary creature. Beside him, Andre's eyes widened. A permanent energy creature can actually kill professionals of the same level? Isn't this demon flame chimera too powerful? The chimera leader's body fell heavily to the ground in front of him, raising a wave of fire ash. Disengage. Upon hearing Van Helsing's words, Fang Ping noticed that the guards of Machete City had maintained their original formation. They quietly raised their shields and crossbows. Only now did they lower their hands. Miss Elsa walked toward Fang Ping's team. Light the torches and clean up the battlefield. The battle was over. 192 bottom line breaked. They lit torches and cleaned up the battlefield. Many wild beasts had died, and not many humans had died. The number of casualties were very small. The dozen or so people who died were all cavalrymen of the Lord's Guard. The number of people in the Lord's Guard decreased. The division and counting of the spoils of war were handled by the guards of Machete City. Fang Ping's team found a place to rest. During this period of time, Fang Ping had used the armor forbidden spell frequently. His skills were also used smoothly. When he returned and found an alchemy laboratory, he should be able to easily upgrade it to excellent grade. It was Fang Ping's night watch tonight, so he needed to sleep early. It was still necessary to keep watch at night. They had actually encountered many magical beasts along the way, but their strength was not very strong. They were basically all class 1 and 2 and could be easily dealt with. Moreover, magical beasts were basically lone wolves. Even if they encountered an outstanding magical beast by chance, they could easily deal with it. However, because magical beasts had various characteristics, rich skills, and could be used indefinitely, there was a price to pay if one underestimated the enemy or ignored it. He first accumulated energy, then fell asleep unknowingly and had a dream. In his dream, Fang Ping saw a large group of demon soldiers in black full-body armor approaching him. Their fingers were long and slender, and their sharp black claws waved in the air. The creatures Fang Ping summoned were easily killed by them. The light membrane of the armor forbidden spell shattered with a touch. They wanted to escape, but there were demon soldiers everywhere, and there was nowhere to run. What should he do? Fang Ping, get up. It's your turn. Fang Ping woke up with a start. Phew, so it was a dream. What's wrong with you? Did you have a nightmare? Feng Ling squatted at the side and spread out her sleeping bag. The torch was stuck in the ground, and black smoke billowed. It's okay. Fang Ping climbed out of his sleeping bag, put on his protective gear, picked up his torch, and began his patrol. Nights without moonlight requires a torch, and Miss Elsa forbade anyone to stand in for the night watch. Therefore, when there was no moon, the intern students were at their most desperate. Holding a torch was definitely not a wonderful experience. When the black smoke rose, the armor on his body would stink for a few days. The torch was actually not very useful to Fang Ping. Fang Ping did not rely on his vision to keep watch at night. He just had to keep using the special characteristics. Moreover, the Lord's guards and the guards of Machete City were close. There were more people guarding the night near them, so they did not have to worry too much. A small ice mountain demonic rat ran over from not far away. This was a common demonic beast in the Snow Frost Mountain. They were not even at ordinary level and their strength was 0. Even if they had the ice arrow characteristic, they were not a threat. Recently, the demonic beast meat that was often eaten was the ice mountain demonic rat. Fang Ping scanned his surroundings. There was no danger. Since he had nothing to do, he ran toward the ice mountain demonic rat. The taste of this thing was not bad, but there was too little energy. It was just for fun. The ice mountain demonic rat was not fast. Even when the tiny blue ice arrows hit Fang Ping's body, he did not feel anything. Fang Ping caught this rabbit-sized little thing. It was still struggling in Fang Ping's hand. Just as he was about to bring it back and tie it up, he saw something sticking to the ground not far ahead and slowly approaching. What is it? Fang Ping quickly used his special characteristics to give it to him. It was a gnome bandit. Woo, woo, woo. He made a faint groaning sound as he crawled. Fang Ping's mastery of the wilderness common language was not good, so he did not know what he was talking about. He kept checking behind him, but there was nothing. Strange, why would a gnome suddenly appear here? Walking over carefully, the gnome bandit raised his head. When he saw Fang Ping, he cried out a few times and changed directions. Seeing that he was not wearing any armor and did not have a weapon in his hand, and his condition was so bad, he should not be a threat. He stabbed the torch into the ground, held the ice mountain demonic rat in one hand and the gnome bandit's leg in the other, and dragged him back. The gnome bandit cried out a few times at first, but later on, he stopped struggling and crying. He found a rope and tied up the ice mountain demon rat and the gnome bandits. It was too late now, and it wouldn't be good to disturb Elsa. He would tell her tomorrow morning. He tied them up a few more times to prevent any accidents. Anyway, there were many ropes. Where did you pick it up? Suddenly, there was a sound behind him. Fang Ping tensed up and exerted force. The gnome bandit on the ground snorted twice more. Someone was standing behind him, but the torch was in the distance and his face could not be seen clearly. It was fine as long as it was given special characteristics. Miss Elsa, why are you here? I heard a strange sound, so I came to take a look. Where did this come from? Elsa wasn't wearing any protective gear, so he could only see the outline of her body in the darkness. She had a good figure. I met him when I was chasing the ice mountain demonic rat. He was crawling on the ground and there was nothing else around. Do you have any healing potions? Give him some. Healing potions were not cheap. 1,000 copper coins. However, since teacher Elsa had said so, Fang Ping still took out a bottle, opened his mouth, and poured a little carefully. It's fine as long as you don't die. There's no need to drink so much. It's a waste. Fang Ping spoke softly as he poured. The effect of the healing potion was obvious. The gnome bandit moved and let out a weak voice. You. Fang Ping looked at instructor Elsa. She should be able to understand. All right, kill him. The things on him are yours. Did something happen? No wonder we haven't encountered any gnomes. The gnome tribe in front was destroyed by the god. All the gnomes are dead. He wants to escape and avoid the wrath of the god. I wonder if the god he's talking about is a magical beast or something. Well, could it be a dragon? Elsa asked again. Why haven't you done anything yet? Well, Fang Ping, you haven't killed anything before, have you? I've participated in so many battles. How can I not? What I'm saying is that it doesn't include summoned creatures. Do it yourself. Fang Ping stood up and looked at Elsa's blurry face. What does it mean whether I've killed before or not? We came to this world and will leave this world one day. What determines our meaning is the process of living, not how we came or walked. To this gnome, his life has already lost its meaning here. Living is meaningless to him. What's the difference between this and death? Should I kill him now? Cut the crap. Take care of it yourself. Don't let him disturb my sleep. Elsa turned around and left. Fang Ping looked at the gnome bandits on the ground. He had never killed anyone before. It was the same 4 human-like creatures. Fang Ping did not want to try. Some things can no longer be the same once they start. Breaking the psychological bottom line was more terrifying than the individual act itself. Fang Ping did not want to make the first move. He was a forbidden spellcaster, so he didn't need to do it himself. He had teammates and summoned creatures. He would leave it for now. The next person to keep watch was Qingniao. He would get Qingniao to help kill him later. After confirming that the rope was tied, Fang Ping walked to the torch. At the same time, he continued to scout the surroundings to prevent the magical beasts from approaching. The torch was stabbed into the ground and burned brightly. The number of cavalrymen in the Lord's guards decreased again. 193 Another scheme. Early in the morning, Fang Ping saw a large number of wild beast corpses laid out on the black ground in front of him. There were probably hundreds of them, and there were many huge wild beasts that did not look weak. In comparison, only a dozen or so Lord's guards had died. It was simply a super victory. However, looking at the shrinking cavalry team, he felt a little sad, especially for those who were alive. If the battle casualty rate exceeded half, the psychological pressure would be very great, because the next person to die was very likely to be him. There were no deserters or mutinies. It was a good way to govern the army. It was still related to the environment of this world. Humans were not the protagonists of the Ziluo continent. Where could they run to? Leaving the army and humans would only die faster. The sun had already risen, but the team still had no intention of setting off. Many people in Fang Ping's team started fighting with each other. Fang Ping had nothing to do. He lay on the hill and basked in the warm morning sun to accumulate energy. If only there was some soft grass under his body, it would definitely be more comfortable. Unfortunately, it had been burned, leaving only grass ashes on the ground. The surrounding voices became noisy. Were they going to set off? He sat up and patted the dust off the grass. He stood rooted to the ground and had no intention of leaving. However, they all looked in the same direction. Fang Ping stood up to see what they were looking at. In the distance, a team was approaching, shining with golden light. It was the human army. The Vatican is here too. Qingniao stood at the side. The Vatican? Fang Ping looked at the leader at the front. It was not the leader of the Holy Light. Shockley. Fao. Qingniao. Have you ever heard that name? Archbishop Fao? I think I've heard of him, but I don't remember him. There were not many people in the Vatican's team, only a few dozen people. There were 3 carriages behind them, walking steadily. At this speed, it would take some time to come over. Chen Long also walked to the side and looked at the Vatican's team. Why is the Vatican here? What's wrong with the Vatican? I don't think I've heard of the Vatican very often. The first time I heard of it, it should be the leader of the Holy Light, Shockley, leading a team to the Dark Forest. Fang Ping actually did not have any feelings for the Vatican. While this organization seemed to be quite big, he could not come into contact with it at all in his life. Commander Shockley is relatively easy to get along with. The Vatican's power is relatively large in the cities in the east, and the voices in Elf City are relatively quiet. Isn't the Vatican a faction? Didn't they say that humans are no longer powerful and have to unite? Didn't the nobles cancel it because of this? Of course, the Vatican listens to the king's commands. It's just that. Of course, in the face of danger, the Vatican will send troops and fight bravely. They won't take the spoils of war, but their actions make it impossible to see the reason. They always feel that they have other motives. Fang Ping could not comment on it. A greedy person was naturally the safest because they only did it for money. However, if a person did not do it for money, his motives would be suspicious. What was free was the most expensive. Actually, it's not all about the spoils of war. You'll know after interacting with the Vatican more. However, there's no need to worry too much. They are humans after all. Their ultimate goal is the same. Fang Ping did not have much of an impression of it anyway. He would just take a look. By the way, Chen Long, what level is Archbishop Fao? It's really useful for you to be able to see other people's names with your characteristics. Is Archbishop Fao the one leading the Vatican's team this time? She's a genius of the Vatican in recent years. It only took her 3 years to advance from a deacon to a bishop. Others can't become a bishop in 10 or 20 years. Moreover, after becoming a bishop, it only took her 5 years to become an archbishop. Does the archbishop mean epic? The advancement of the Vatican not only requires levels, but also faith. However, generally speaking, the lowest level of an archbishop is at the epic grade. Fao advanced to the legendary stage 2 years ago. She's only in her early 30s. She also has a chance of trying to be above the legendary grade. Above the legendary grade, Fang Ping thought of Chen Long's father, Grand Duke Du Wei. It was said that he was the person closest to legendary. Seeing Ivan approach them, the team waited for a while and began to move forward. The Vatican's team brought up the rear, walking more than 100 meters behind Fang Ping's team. Now, Fang Ping only felt an overwhelming sense of security. He no longer needed to use the special characteristics everywhere. He wore the tranquil heart necklace and accumulated energy by the roadside. Ivan the Silver Heron Tiger, Demon Hunter General Van Helsing, Archbishop Fao. 3 legendary level people were present. Such a luxurious lineup. Even if a magical beast came, it would only be for practice. Threats? That did not exist. Silver Heron's voice, Teacher Elsa, long time no see. Your aura has become much stronger. Archbishop, you must be joking. I've been running around and haven't had the time to cultivate. Now, there's a student whose situation is special. I need to trouble you to take a look. Fang Ping saw Teacher Elsa walking over with someone. It was Archbishop Fao. Her long black hair draped over her shoulders, and her facial features were exquisite. She was wearing a purplish-red armor that revealed a portion of her lower abdomen. She was wearing a purplish-red battle dress. She held a golden metal book in her hand, engraved with complicated patterns. She was graceful and slender, looking like a girl next door. She smiled and walked past him. However, she was filled with the confidence of a superior, making people only dare to look at her from afar. It was difficult to profane her. If he had not heard from Chen Long first, Fang Ping would not have been able to tell that she was more than 30 years old. This could not be explained by the fact that she had taken good care of herself. She had not aged at all. Elsa led her forward. Gran was still lying on Yarbo's back, still not awake. He didn't know what was wrong with him. Fang Ping was still very concerned about Gran's condition. After all, he had used an armor forbidden spell on him and 2 silver dragons. This money could not be little. Elsa had come to take a look, but for some reason, she had specially invited Archbishop Fao. It doesn't seem to be a curse-type characteristic. Some people will suddenly awaken in battle. I wonder if this is his situation. Elsa stood next to him. Awakening characteristics? I've thought about it, but he's already awakened. Second awakening. Do you have a mage who knows group amnesia? I don't have group amnesia, but I do have amnesia characteristic. William, come here for a while. William walked over from the front and bowed. Miss Elsa, Archbishop Fao. Fao returned the greeting slightly. William, we haven't seen each other in a long time. Elsa pointed at Gran. Try to make him lose his memory. William walked to Yarbo's side and covered his eyes. Then, he lowered his hand and bowed to Elsa before walking towards the front of the team. At this moment, Gran moved. He struggled to get off Yarbo's back. Where am I? Where am I? What happened? As expected, it's a second awakening. Congratulations. Since there's nothing else, I'll leave first. Archbishop Fao passed through the group and walked towards the Vatican at the back. Fang Ping looked at her back and felt that the Vatican was doing quite well. Gran quickly understood his situation, and the people around him came over to congratulate. 194 Avoiding a group fight. Second awakening, and it was the second awakening in battle. Who knew how many awakening stones he had saved? Fang Ping, I'm very grateful for your protection. I heard from Yarbo and the others that if not for your armor forbidden spell and the timely order to save me, I might have died. These 10 pieces of silver. No need, no need. Fang Ping quickly pushed his hand back. It's my job. He only took 2 silver coins from him. Thank you. If you need any help in the future, just let me know. I'll definitely help you. Okay. After putting the money into his pocket, Fang Ping actually wanted to ask Gran what his newly awakened characteristics were. However, it was an unspoken rule not to ask about characteristics, so Fang Ping could not ask. It was only the second awakening. If he had to say it, it would be the fourth awakening. He was still weak. He followed the team forward and accumulated energy. Time went back to last night. Ayabar wore a black robe and walked through the narrow street. The poet's bar was very remote and required a long day tour. Standing at the entrance of the bar, this dark blue signboard bar was a little dark and dilapidated. It took a long time for someone to enter and leave. Sir Ayabar, I've been waiting for you for a long time. This way, please. Suddenly, someone came to his side. It was the hoarse male voice from the morning. Ayabar seemed to see those eyes staring at him through the black robe. How did you recognize me? Your temperament is extraordinary. Even though you're wearing a black robe, you have a different aura, temperament. Let's go. Yes, sir. This way, please. He saluted, then led the way. The wooden door of the bar creaked. He pushed open the door and bowed again. Ayabar followed him in. There were only a few weak lights in the bar. There was a dilapidated bar counter and a few small round tables. Sitting there were customers in black robes. Creak. The door slowly closed behind him. What would you like to drink, sir? Ayabar followed him and sat at the bar counter. He shook his head and said, I'm not drinking. What business were you talking about earlier today? Let's have a drink. The Bloody Mary in this bar is worth a try. As he spoke, the bartender placed a glass of wine in front of Ayabar. The slender crystal cup was crystal clear. Dark red liquid swayed inside, reflecting an alluring red light. Ayabar turned around and looked at the person behind him. You're taking this out just like that? It's just a glass of wine. Ayabar picked up the crystal cup and took a sip before shaking his head. TSK, the taste is wrong. You really know your stuff. This is just a glass of wine. Ayabar put down the cup. So, are you testing me? I don't feel you're sincerity. It's a big business after all. Of course, I have to be more cautious. Speaking of which, we're actually acquaintances. Your parents are also my old companions. The face under Ayabar's hood could not be seen. Voices surrounded her ears. Traitor. They are traitors, and so are you. If you betray humans, your entire family will die. If they die, you will die too. Your entire family will die together. Through the blood-colored liquid, Ayabar could vaguely see the little girl sitting on the ground. The red crystal cup looked very much like the fire that night. With the Vatican joining them, they would feel much more at ease when they walked. Princess Sif also came out of the carriage and walked in front of the team, chatting with William and White Snow. Fang Ping carried the Ice Mountain demonic rat. Qingniao helped him deal with it. Fang Ping was waiting to roast it at noon. After all, life was too boring. Other than cultivating, there was basically nothing to do. In the beginning, he was not used to living without a phone, computer, or television network. As time passed, he really missed it. It was not until noon that grass appeared on the ground again. The fire last night had burned here. There were some small bushes around. Most importantly, he saw a stream that formed a pool. A huge battle erupted around the pool. The guards of Machete City killed an epic rank wolf-type magical beast. Its body was densely covered in arrows, and blood flowed into the small pool, dyeing most of the pool red. There should be more food available tonight. This was the only water source in the nearby vast area. He rested here at noon and waited for the rabbit man hunter to kill many magical beasts. The soldiers would also deliberately let go of some normal level and excellent level magical beasts and let Fang Ping's team deal with them. Fang Ping's team would also divide their targets to avoid group fights. As for how much of a training effect it could have, it was hard to say. This was also the reason why teacher Elsa had deliberately kept Fang Ping's team away from the Lord's guards along the way. Fang Ping could not be bothered to hunt magical beasts with them. He washed the Ice Mountain demonic rat by the stream and filled a leather bag with water. Every day, he would roast meat. Today, he would cook soup for a change of taste. I want to eat too. Xiang Yu sat beside Fang Ping and looked at the broth in his leather bag. Fang Ping roasted this first, then turned it into small pieces, blanched it, and boiled it. Although there was no ginger to remove the gamey smell, and there were no various seasonings, Fang Ping only added salt. However, under the influence of energy, the magical beast meat generally tasted good. Perhaps it was because the energy tasted good? They've killed so many. Go and ask them for one. I'm lazy. Fang Ping glanced at Xiang Yu. 10 copper coins for a piece of meat. If you want to eat it, pay. I have money, give me a bowl, a copper horn. You're too expensive, there aren't even 10 pieces of meat here. Doesn't the soup cost money? Does the salt cost money? I want to eat first. If it's not delicious, I won't even give you a copper coin. Ah, it smells so good. Fang Ping took a sip as well. The taste was indeed not bad when paired with the yellow melon pancake. He took a bite of the pancake, ate a piece of meat, and drank a mouthful of soup. I heard that you're very strong and have many characteristics. Are you also an innate awakened? I'm very strong? Fang Ping spat out a bone. Who said that? So many people. So how many characteristics do you have? So in the eyes of others, he was already considered a powerhouse. The secondary image and charging characteristic were indeed strong. Moreover, it could be considered a characteristic that became stronger the later stages. After waiting for a while and seeing that Fang Ping did not answer, he continued, it's just that in my eyes, you don't look like a powerhouse. You're too lazy. I've never seen you train. Hurry up and pay me the money. After eating and drinking their fill, they wanted to lie by the river and sleep for a while. Just as they lay down, the team set off again. Fang Ping conveniently used the measuring stick. His energy was close to 2,000. In 5 days, he would be able to learn the next skill. Strength and attack power remained unchanged. He pinched his thin arms and legs. Logically speaking, after walking for more than a month, he should have become stronger, right? But there was no change at all. So why should he be diligent? As they went down, the terrain became more and more gentle when it was close to evening. Looking back, he still could not see the entire mountain. When I was looking for wild vegetables in front just now, I heard from Princess Sif that this is almost the foot of Snow Frost Mountain. When we leave Snow Frost Mountain, the Forest of Elves is in front. 195 Life is very careful. That's quite fast. If we didn't go to the dwarf city, we've only walked for 4 to 5 days, right? Yes, it's a pity that we didn't find the gold mine Endre mentioned. Fang Ping looked ahead. Under the night sky, white fog filled the distance. It's so foggy up ahead. The Vatican was not like Fang Ping's team, who slept after laying out a sleeping bag. They leveled the land, dug ditches, and cleared weeds. The carriage was not filled with war machines, but tents. One of the carriages opened and was wrapped in a curtain. It was a simple bathhouse. They were really particular, still thought about how to take a shower when traveling out. When Fang Ping and the others were on the main road of the fortress, they had not taken a shower for 8 to 9 days. It was even more troublesome to relieve themselves. A screen placed on the ground was used as partition for a toilet. In front of them was the beautiful scenery of nature, and behind them were their teammates. After all, they could not go out too far, since magical beasts is always lurking in hope to catch a human on their own. The life of the Vatican was still very particular. In comparison, Fang Ping's team seemed very casual. Fang Ping finished his dinner and prepared to cultivate. He could vaguely hear a faint and sharp sound echoing in his ears. When Fang Ping opened his eyes and scanned his surroundings, he could not see anything. The sound seemed to have disappeared. Many of Fang Ping's team members also got up. They had also heard the sound, so it was not an illusion. It looks like a ghost. That's why ghosts have such high-pitched voices. Why would the undead appear at the foot of the Fog Mountain? The Snow Frost Mountain is the holy mountain of the elves. It's equivalent to the elves' backyard. As he spoke, the roar of the undead came from the thick fog again. This time, it was even louder and everyone heard it. A low, hoarse voice that sounded like a broken blower was definitely the undead. Fang Ping stared at the thick fog and kept using special ability enhancement to see if anything came out. Couldn't he spend a day in peace? The roars of the undead sounded from time to time, but nothing came out of the thick fog. The army at the front and the Vatican at the back did not do anything. Only the number of people keeping watch tonight had clearly increased. Since there was nothing else, he went to sleep. No, it was time for cultivation. That's absolutely impossible. Even if there's internal strife in the elven forest, it's impossible for any undead to pass. In this ordinary decorated carriage sat 6 people, all of whom are famous. Elven princess, according to our paladin's investigation, there are no less than 1,000 undead at the foot of the mountain. There are also more than 300 mid and high-level undead. We can't rule out the possibilities. Archbishop Fao held the golden book in her hand, speaking calmly with a dignified bearing. Ivan was dressed in casual clothes. One could even see the straps wrapped under his skin. His voice was slightly softer, but he was still full of energy. If they come quietly with such numbers, your elven defense line will be useless. I think some elves released them. Sif shook her head. Rachel isn't such an elf. Even if we had a conflict, she would put the interests of the elves first. She wouldn't do that. Van Helsing stroked the silver crossbow in his hand, lowered his head, and said, "This might be a deal. She used your life to exchange for these undead. If I'm not wrong, there should be many elves behind the foot of the fog mountain, waiting to surround and kill the undead. The undead monarch, Shiloh, should be very willing to exchange 1,000 undead for an elf princess. Both sides won't lose out in this deal. No, no way. These are all possibilities. What should we do now?" As a captain, James was usually quite dignified. However, everyone present was famous now. Moreover, the three legendary experts made James's voice weaken. Low-level undead's death curse, high-level undead's rebirth, and resurrection are all very difficult to deal with. I wonder what Archbishop Fowl thinks. Demon Hunter General Van Helsing must be joking. Your Holy Judgment silver crossbow is the nemesis of the undead. However, since the opponent is the undead, the Vatican will naturally not back down. Tomorrow at noon, when the thick fog is at its weakest, we will pass through. There is holy light and healing. Everyone, you don't have to worry. Ha ha ha. Fortunately, the Archbishop is present this time. Otherwise, this path would not be easy to walk. Brother, be careful. The wound hasn't healed yet. When he woke up in the morning, the Vatican had already put away the tents. Speaking of which, when Fang Ping was sighing with emotion yesterday, he had forgotten one thing. Were his people living a rough life, or were there people who were very still living well? William had always slept in a tent. At first, he felt awkward looking at it, but after a long time, he got used to it. As the sun rose, the thick fog in the distance faded a little. Fang Ping, you're probably the last person to wake up every day. This is the meat porridge that the guard sent over this morning. I helped you get a bowl. It's already cold. He took the porridge from Ching Niao. Be more confident and remove your estimation. Carrying the porridge, there were many martial arts scenes to watch beside it. It was just right for the rice. The one who was closer was Andre against Tai Tu. Andre was more of a guide. Tai Tu was obviously not Andre's match. If it was further away, it would be relatively rare. Magotin versus Anthony. The two melee forbidden spellcasters were both top-notch in terms of strength. Their weapons were also very similar. Magotin had a horizontal blade with a cane, and Anthony had a short dagger with a cane. The two of them were not warriors, but their skills were not inferior to warriors at all. However, Anthony was still slowly at a disadvantage. His running characteristic was still much weaker than Magotin's dodge characteristic. Characteristic run increases movement speed by 50%. Characteristic dodge, when receiving a physical attack, there is a 20% chance of immunity to this damage. After all, it was a sparring session. They stopped quickly. Fang Ping also finished his breakfast successfully. What was he going to do next? The sun was already out. Wasn't the team going to set off? We don't leave until noon. Fang Ping raised his head. Lisa walked to the side. You guys chat. I'll go look for Andre to guide me. Ching Niao stood up and walked away. Lisa sat down. What's wrong? What's the matter? Nothing much. I just want to talk to you. After losing to you last time, I realized that I still have a lot of shortcomings. No, I was lucky last time. You're still very strong. Your energy returns faster than I thought. Okay. Lisa suddenly ran over and chatted casually. At noon, the people from the Vatican set off first and walked in front. In front of them were paladins and crusaders holding shields. Behind them were nuns and deacons in robes. They were all professions unique to the Vatican. They had the characteristics of professions and learned more skills. Just like paladins, they could learn the skills of warriors and forbidden spellcasters. Deacons were the combination of forbidden spellcasters and mags. However, the Vatican's job prerequisite was not easy to fulfill, unlike Fang Ping's forbidden spellmaster job. As long as one was willing to take on a job, anyone could do it. As for the prerequisite, it was first by gender, second by faith. 196 Fear of the unknown. Fang Ping knew all of this when Lisa came over in the morning to chat. From the sound of it, the professionals of the Vatican were indeed stronger. However, they were also restricted by their profession characteristics and could not use the awakening stones. In any case, the Vatican was very strong when facing the undead now. Basically, everyone had healing characteristics that perfectly countered the death curse. The deacons and nuns also had the characteristic holy light. The rebirth of the undead, resurrection of souls, and skeletons were also not effective. He followed behind the Vatican and walked towards the foot of the mountain. The Vatican walked in front. The Lord's Guard and the Machete City Guards were divided on both sides. Fang Ping's team walked in the middle with the carriage. Can be considered that they are being protected. The death curse was very threatening to low-level professionals. The sun was high in the sky, and the thick fog was slightly fainter. Visibility was still very low. The people in front walked into the thick fog and could not see clearly after a short distance. Fang Ping tried to use the special characteristics in front of him, but there was no feedback. The visibility was less than 2 meters. When he looked down at his feet, he could not see clearly. The white light above his head was the sunlight. The sunlight was blocked by the thick fog and could not shine down. This was definitely not a normal fog. It was probably a supernatural phenomenon under the influence of energy. Fang Ping grabbed the carriage frame beside him and stared at the back of the person in front of him. Everything around him was white. When he turned around, he could no longer see the way he had come. Fang Ping did not dare to let go. If he was left behind here, he stared at the person in front of him. He gripped the cane in his other hand tightly. This was the first time Fang Ping truly felt the fear of the unknown. In the dark, the special characteristics could be used. At least Fang Ping knew where the danger was and what it was. But now, he knew that there was danger. The thick fog was filled with undead, but where were they? Fang Ping did not know. Moreover, Fang Ping's attack power was only 10 points. Even if he was wearing the frost armor set, he would still be killed instantly. The life-forbidden spell only lasted for 10 minutes. This journey would not be completed in 10 minutes. Roar! Ah! The scream of the undead suddenly sounded in front of him. The sound of weapons colliding, muffled explosions, and the howls or roars of the undead. Fang Ping stuck close to the carriage and quickly squatted down. He held the cane in his hand and was prepared at all times. If there was any movement, he would immediately use 3 forbidden spells on himself. The person in front of him was a ranger. Fang Ping squatted down and could only see his feet. From time to time, he stood on his tiptoes, as if he was looking forward. Could he see what was in front of him? Fang Ping realized a problem. He seemed to be the only one who was especially nervous. The person in front of him still had his longbow hanging on his back, and Qing Niao beside him was nowhere to be seen. They seemed to be able to see further. It was not the first time he had such a feeling. Qing Niao's hearing was also better than his. Fang Ping suddenly had an epiphany. Perhaps it was not that they were too good, but that he was too bad. Humans were also a type of animal. However, after years of evolution, humans began to use tools. From a hunting civilization to a farming civilization, they no longer needed to wave wooden sticks to chase after their prey. As time passed, their bodily functions began to degenerate, and their senses were not that sensitive. In this world, battles never stopped. Once one's organs degenerated, they would immediately be eliminated. Otherwise, it would bring about the destruction of the entire race. Looking at his thin arms and legs, his body should still be the same. Therefore, in essence, he was still different from the humans here. Perhaps it was also because of this that his strength and attack power had never increased. Take Ivan for example. Could such a physique really be called a human? After a while, the sounds of battle gradually faded, and the team set off again. Fang Ping quickly helped the carriage stand up and caught up with the people in front. As the carriage moved forward, cracking sounds could be heard. The bones on the ground were crushed by the heavy wheels, and the sound of shattering could be heard. Fang Ping picked up a bone. It was relatively slender, probably a hand bone. It was completely white and did not have anything strange adhered to it. He bent it and found that it was quite hard. How did these bones move? Energy was really a magical thing. The surroundings were still white, and blurry figures swayed. Fang Ping did not know anything. He only grabbed the carriage, stared at the people in front, and followed them forward. Roar! The roar of the undead came from ahead again. The team stopped. The first few times, Fang Ping would lean against the carriage nervously, holding his cane and paying attention to his surroundings. By the 10th time, Fang Ping was no longer so nervous. The people in front of him also relaxed and chatted in low voices. These undead are too weak. I feel like they'll die after a few hits. It's because the Vatican is too strong. Basically, everyone has a special healing ability. The combat nuns also have a special faith. The undead are completely restrained. There are still no casualties, right? It should be. The shadow bullet almost killed a paladin just now, but he was healed immediately. Fang Ping listened to their conversation and guessed that the battle ahead should be going smoothly. In any case, Fang Ping's eyes were blank. He could not see anything and did not know what had happened. If the team stopped, they would stop. If the team walked, they would follow. Elsa's voice suddenly sounded. The blizzard is here. Take precautions. Devil armor forbidden spell. Fang Ping immediately augmented himself with a magic shield. 3 bluish-purple shields appeared. The white fog above his head darkened. Something was blocking the sunlight above. A moment later, snowflakes and broken ice fell from above, creating a strong wind on the ground. It swept up snow and ice and hit the carriage. Fang Ping hugged his backpack and squatted on the ground. The magic shield on his body swayed continuously, and the temperature plummeted. In an instant, he felt like he had returned to the knife-edge mountain road. Ice and snow scraped across the armor, making an ear-piercing sound. Fang Ping had seen Blizzard at the auction house in Elf City. Its lethality was not strong, and its main focus was a control-type skill. All targets would obtain the characteristic freeze. Characteristic freeze, unable to move. Lasts for 30 seconds. As a strategic skill, its coverage was very wide. Everyone was affected. Under the snowstorm, the fog at the foot of the mountain dissipated. The magic shield on Fang Ping's body had already shattered, and the blizzard had stopped. The field of vision was wide, and the ground was covered in blue and white ice and snow. The humans were frozen on the spot. On the left, there were 3 rows of undead lined up neatly. Behind them, Fang Ping saw the undead casting spells. It was a cold wind spirit that emitted a faint blue aura. Basic excellent grade. He should have reached epic grade. Next to them was a row of cold spirits, also casting spells. After the blizzard, rolling black clouds appeared in the clear sky again. Amidst the black clouds, white lightning danced. Fang Ping was too familiar with this scene. Lightning strike. There were so many lightning strikes. Under the restriction of the snowstorm, everyone froze on the spot. The thunderclouds contained lightning and were about to fall. Fang Ping took out the golden body potion from his pocket and was about to drink it when he heard a loud shout from ahead. "I'll get a share of the spoils of war." An arrow flew out unsteadily. It was shot at the wrong angle and did not have enough strength. It was harmless. 197 Wonderful experience. Fang Ping stuffed the golden body potion back into his pocket. He had seen this scene in the cave tunnel before. The zombie guard ignored the arrow and let it hit the shield lightly before falling. In the dark clouds, white light shone brightly. Thick lightning bolts roared and pierced the sky. The lightning dragon descended. On the ground, the humans frozen in place by the blue-white ice and snow were golden. Specialty golden body transmission. When entering battle, all allies will obtain the specialty golden body. Duration, 30 seconds. Special feature golden body. When injured, the damage will decrease to 0. Fang Ping raised his head. Lightning struck the top of his head. Dazzling white light filled his entire vision. His mind spun. He opened his eyes and could not see anything. After a while, his vision slowly returned to normal. His body was intact and unscathed. What a wonderful experience. The golden body could only be immune to damage and would not remove the abnormal status. Therefore, even if everyone activated invincibility, they were still frozen in place by the snowstorm and could not move. Seeing that the lightning strike spell was ineffective, the undead slowly retreated. The thick fog around them floated over and blocked their figures. The sky was covered in fog again. 30 seconds passed quickly. The ice and snow on the ground turned into energy and dissipated. The frozen state was removed, and the golden body power-up disappeared. Instead of chasing after the undead that had left, the team continued forward. Fang Ping thought about it and put the golden body potion in a more convenient position. Who knew if he would need it again? Xiang Yu's characteristics could only be used once a day. It was still too strong for a group to be invincible for 30 seconds. In comparison, these characteristics of his seemed so weak. However, it was lacking when compared to those better than him. Compared to Genie's heavy armor, Gran's alertness was much stronger. Right, Gran had already awakened the second characteristic. He did not know what it was though. He walked forward and did not stop. Suddenly, his vision widened. There was no fog. Fang Ping turned around. The thick fog was already behind him. It was as if there was an illusory transparent wall blocking them. The fog flowed, but not a trace of it dissipated. Fang Ping's team continued to move forward. The carriages behind them came out one after another. In the end, the Vatican's team walked out. The sun had already set when they walked out of the foot of the mountain. There were no longer tall weeds around him. From the height of a person to the height of a calf, walking did not affect him much. Some bushes were dotted here and there, and because of the snow moon, the leaves had already withered and fallen. That looks like a snake heart fruit. Qingniao discovered something else. It rummaged through the dry branches and picked out a thumb-sized red fruit. The outer shell of the fruit was very similar to the snake scales. This is for Endre. This is good stuff to break through the energy barrier. Qingniao put it carefully into its pocket, and its eyes searched the ground again. Fang Ping admired Qingniao. Along the way, he had picked up more than 10 silver coins from the ground. Fang Ping was still not short of money, so he did not have a strong desire to earn money. Of course, Fang Ping was still short of money. He signed a magic IOU with Tangji for 2 coins and 60 million copper coins for a year. 60 million by finding wild vegetables and fruits. That was simply living in a dream. Once amount reached 10 million, it was not something that could be earned by labor alone. It was either a dividend from interest rates or a violation of the law. It was the same in any world. Moreover, this world was so dangerous. Perhaps he would not live for more than a year. Moon Bell pushed open the bookstore door. Every afternoon, during the last 7-colored chess class, Moon Bell would leave early. After playing the complete 7-colored chess, it was indeed meaningless to look at the simple version. The afterglow of the setting sun opened the door of the shop and followed Moon Bell into the bookstore. Business in the bookstore had been slowly improving recently, and there were some regular customers. Moon Bell would come in advance to clean up, tidy up the bookshelves, and make a few pots of tea. These jobs were complicated and did not earn much money. Moon Bell was still enjoying them. Her goal was not to earn money to begin with. She just wanted to fulfill her long-cherished wish. Therefore, Moon Bell was already very satisfied with the current situation. After setting up the chair, she looked at the books on the shelf again to see if they were placed in the wrong place. Her fingertips brushed across the bookshelf and lightly touched the spine of the book. Moon Bell liked the texture of this paper. Tap tap. Light footsteps sounded as someone entered. Welcome. The orange sunset outlined a tall figure for him. He lowered his head slightly and walked in. Moon Bell. She couldn't see his face clearly, but his voice was very familiar. Brother, why are you here? Luo Feng walked in and sized up the decorations in the bookstore. It's much bigger after moving here. It's not as sad looking as the previous store. Moon Bell took out a cup and poured a cup of freshly brewed tea for Luo Feng. There aren't many people here, so I can afford renting a bigger shop. Luo Feng took a sip. It was still very hot, so he placed the cup on the table and took out a book. I obtained it from a mission a while ago. If it's a skill insight, I have to hand it over. I'll leave this book for you. Thank you, brother. Moon Bell happily took the book and placed it under the counter. Old books also need to be maintained before they can be placed on the shelves. The gnomes and trolls have suddenly quietened down recently, and it's rare for me to have a few days off. However, the undead have a lot of movements. The city guards have already captured several vampires. Seems like there are many vampires in the city. Our elf city? I heard it's another city. The information hasn't been made public. The concealment potion is expensive. The undead must have a motive for doing this. You have to be careful. If there's anything wrong, come and find me quickly. Okay. Fang Ping took out the bowl. It was dinner time again. Tonight's dinner was more sumptuous. It was a fruit platter. There were all kinds of wild fruits in the bushes. Most of them were already ripe. Red and black fruits were hidden under the branches and leaves. It was filled with a large bowl and was delicious. Moreover, he did not have to worry about being poisoned after eating it. Being poisoned was only a matter of using purification. Fang Ping, lend me your measuring rod. Endre grabbed the 2 snake heart fruits given by Qingniao and held the measuring stick. Strength 2, 42 lives, energy 980. I wonder if these 2 will work. Red camellia snake stood at the side. Snake heart fruit is at least 5 silver coins each. Moreover, it's not available on the market. If you don't want to eat it, why don't you sell it to me? So expensive? Then I want to eat it. As he spoke, Endre closed his eyes and threw the 2 red fruits into his mouth. He chewed a few times and swallowed them. The measuring rod in his hand had yet to be released. The light emitted by the measuring rod became brighter and brighter. It's not delicious, it's bitter. Endre successfully advanced to Class 2. After more than 2 months, this speed was already ahead of most of the in-service training students. Fang Ping ate the wild fruits and thought about what he should do next. It was quite boring to live like this day after day. He walked, accumulated energy, rested, accumulated energy, and accumulated energy all the time. Then, he would use it all in one battle. Moreover, the battles were all in the back row. In reality, Fang Ping had nothing to do. 198 cost, huge difference. How boring. Red camellia snake stood beside Endre. The huge snake coiled on the ground and raised its head. Maybe he can raise a pet? He patted Qingniao beside him. He was skewering wild vegetables with a thin wooden stick. Qingniao, do you know where Red camellia snake got the snake? A permanent energy creature? Snakes are indeed rare. They are probably not from the Ziluo continent, but from some smaller cities. The price won't be cheap though. When Red camellia snake heard this, she looked over and extended 3 fingers. It only costs 3 golden leaves. Ah! Fang Ping was stunned. It was nearly 1,000,000 copper coins. A man is not as valued as a pet. Cultivation helps with saving money after all. It was not a matter of money, it was mainly because raising pets was too troublesome. Before dinner time, the team had already stopped to rest. Fang Ping did not know what to do, so he could only close his eyes. Recently, he had been accumulating energy. It was a little annoying. When he saw those golden light spots running around, he couldn't be bothered to capture them with his attention. "I'll wait here, you come in yourself." Capturing hundreds of light spots only increased 1 point of energy. What was the use of 1 point of energy? Using a life forbidden spell consumed 75 points of energy, which was tens of thousands of light spots. Just thinking about it made him feel bored. Moreover, it was so boring and repetitive. Counting ants was more interesting than accumulating energy, and it was the snow moon now, there were no ants to count either way. As for understanding skills, Fang Ping had been using purification more often recently. With some insight, he could also think about its principles and deepen his understanding. Life forbidden spells allowed energy to be used on every muscle in the body. The deeper the light spot went, the higher the attack power. Purification was different. Purification was to remove abnormal states, but abnormal states covered a wide surface area. Curse-type characteristics were abnormal states, poisoning was abnormal states, freezing was abnormal states, and dizziness was abnormal states. These principles were all different, so why could the purification remove them? Do they have something in common? For example, Andre had been cursed to become a bat. This was a change in his body. The dizzy state was a change in his brain's consciousness. These two things did not belong to the same category. Even if they went to the hospital, they had to go to different departments, but just using purification could resolve it. Changing his train of thought, what if it wasn't a hospital? What if it was a computer? His body had been invaded by a certain computer virus, and there was a slight problem. At this time, the purification was like an antivirus software. Antivirus software did not seem to be appropriate. Then, he would reset the system and restore the factory settings for you, allowing your body to return to its original state. The abnormal state would be gone. Therefore, purification did not have the effect of healing injuries. Because it was a heavy-duty system, it only dealt with software problems. If you were stabbed, it would be a hardware malfunction. The heavy-duty system could not help you solve it. Thinking about it this way, it seemed a little appropriate. Then Ling Ling's flawless barrier characteristic was not affected by any abnormalities. It was equivalent to the computer tacitly agreeing to the freezing point restoration and constantly returning to its original state. No virus could take effect. It seemed quite interesting. The higher the level of purification, the more complete the restoration, the better the effect. However, he was only thinking about what to do to restore it more thoroughly. Fang Ping did not have any ideas. It would be great if he could be in the team. He could also listen to Moon Bell's skill analysis class. "Fang Ping, it's time to eat. There's a feast tonight." He was pulled over and by Qing Miao. A feast? Was it some high-level magical beast meat? Eating magical beast meat was indeed a fast way to accumulate energy. Along the way, they had eaten a lot. Fang Ping's team's overall energy accumulation was fast. Many people had reached the peak of Class 1 and were stuck at the energy barrier. It was very difficult to advance further than 900. Therefore, Teacher Elsa had recently asked Fang Ping's team to walk with the Lord's Guards in order to reduce the number of battles and the use of skills. The price of 900 energy points for one skill was huge compared to 800 energy points for one skill. All of this had nothing to do with Fang Ping. Fang Ping only cared about eating. He would let his characteristics charge the energy. However, what was this? Looking at the sparkling green bowl in his hand, Fang Ping fell into deep thought. This was called a feast. It was like fishing a bucket of green paint out of the sewer. If this had been placed in the canteen, the other dishes would have been finished. Fang Ping would not have ordered it even if he had yellow melon porridge with a flatbread. Its color and appearance were simply indescribable. Beside him, Qing Miao had already finished the yellow melon pancake with a gulp. "Fang Ping, why haven't you eaten yet? It's rich in energy and tastes very good." Fang Ping did not believe him. "I'm afraid you have some misunderstanding about the taste. You think it's as delicious as the old master's soup. These are all residual undead energy that has been purified by the holy light. The energy is even higher than magical beast meat. It's a pity that everyone can only get one bowl. Otherwise, I would have drunk until I was full." Fang Ping looked at the indescribable in the bowl. "Forget it. For the sake of energy, even if Ollie gave it to him. I was just thinking about it, please don't act upon it." He pinched his nose and took a small sip. "It's surprisingly delicious. The texture was actually very refreshing and a little salty, like a rich soup. The taste was deep and rich and there was an indescribable joy. Yeah, I told you. Fang Ping lowered his head and glanced at the bowl. The things inside were still indescribable. He didn't care anymore. He closed his eyes and gulped down the entire bowl. It was delicious. It was fragrant. The soup was at room temperature, but when it entered his stomach, his entire body warmed up and he felt comfortable. Was it the effect of energy? Every cell in his body was cheering. All the fatigue in his body was swept away, and the corners of his mouth subconsciously curled up. What a wonderful experience. As long as he did not think about its appearance, Fang Ping was still very willing to have another bowl. Fang Ping, your expression now is so funny. Fang Ping did not want to answer Qing Miao. He closed his eyes and slowly lay down on the ground. Dense spots of light appeared around him, and his entire body was submerged in the golden sea. There was no need for Fang Ping to pay attention to them. The golden light spots floated into Fang Ping's body very actively. You have to keep watch tonight. Don't fall asleep. Forget it, I'll go tell Edwin call you when it's time to change shifts. Qing Miao was also a forbidden spellcaster. She could feel an obvious fluctuation in the surrounding energy, drifting quickly toward Fang Ping, just like the time in Fire Dragon City. Had he entered a special cultivation state again? No wonder Fang Ping's advancement speed was so fast. The night watch could not be changed. Qing Miao thought that if Fang Ping had not come out of this special state by then, he would tell Elsa. Elsa would probably agree if he stood in for him. Fang Ping's mind was blank. He did not want to think about anything or do anything. He just lay there quietly. Closing his eyes was like lying in a golden river. The river flowed towards him and washed over him. His body was warm. When he opened his eyes again, his surroundings were still dark and swaying slightly. When he looked again, he realized that he was lying in the carriage. The window was covered by a curtain, and bright white light shone from the edge. It was already dawn. Why was he in the carriage? 199 Improvement. Fang Ping sat up. This was a carriage filled with spoils of war. Other than the spot he was lying on, there were stacks of weapons and equipment behind it. The smell was strong. After waking up, Fang Ping did not want to stay here any longer. He got up and prepared to go out. The curtain was lifted and an old man poked his head in. It was a logistics staff, a carriage driver. You're awake, young man, you're very impressive. How long have I been asleep? It's noon now, about 10 hours. I'm also a forbidden spellcaster. I can feel the energy flowing towards you. It's improved a lot, right? It's all right. Fang Ping smiled politely at him and jumped off the carriage. Behind him, he could still hear his sigh. Young people these days are really impressive. Fang Ping's team was not far ahead. Fang Ping ran a few steps to catch up. Qing Miao walked behind the group and noticed Fang Ping. Fang Ping, you're awake. He took the backpack from Qing Miao. Did you put me in the carriage? Well, you were in a special state yesterday. Edwin went to look for Miss Elsa and didn't ask you to keep watch. The team is leaving in the morning. I saw that you weren't awake yet, so I put you into the carriage with Andre. By the way, how much did you improve last night? Fang Ping was also looking forward to it. He opened his backpack, grabbed the measuring rod, and watched it slowly light up. 2,500. It increased by more than 500 points. However, to be honest, Fang Ping was a little disappointed. It was not much. At least, it was not so much that there was a qualitative change. 2,000 energy points and 2,500 energy points were just one more skill. Qing Yao was also looking forward to it. How is it? How much has it increased? 500 points. Only 500. 500 is not bad. You can learn a new skill. Learning a new skill was not bad. Fang Ping had been keeping the Holy Shock skill for a long time. He could finally learn it. This would also be Fang Ping's first offensive skill. I really envy you. That soup we drank will only increase our energy by 20 to 30 points. It will take more than half a month to accumulate 500 points. More than half a month? Qing Miao, how much energy can you accumulate every day? Qing Miao lowered his head and counted with his fingers. The cultivation speed of a Class 2 martial artist is about twice as fast as when he was a Class 1. He can accumulate more than 20 a day. With the energy fragments, he can accumulate more than 30. It's hard to say if there's magical beast meat, but it might not be available every day. When Fang Ping heard him say this, he realized that the charge characteristic was really strong. His daily increase in energy was close to 100 points, and his speed was 3 times that of Qing Miao. Qing Miao, are the undead here? No, they are probably afraid. The nuns and deacons of the Vatican are the nemesis of the undead. They won't just throw their lives away. Throw their lives away? Weren't they already dead? Fang Ping looked ahead. At the end of the withered grassland was a large patch of green, the coniferous forest. When he came, he had passed through a coniferous forest on the main road of the fortress. At that time, he had been looking forward to eating roasted coniferous fruits. Now, Fang Ping was not very interested. He had seized too many pine cones from the gem beast. The taste was similar. He ate them every day until he was sick of them. Therefore, although the yellow melon was not delicious, he never got tired of it. Indeed, staple food was irreplaceable. During the afternoon break, many people came over to ask Fang Ping about the situation. Consider joining our South Lake Chamber of Commerce? Lisa came over to recruit another round. No, I won't think about it for now. Ha ha ha, Lisa, but you didn't expect someone to refuse to join the South Lake Chamber of Commerce, right? Fang Ping took the wine glass from Chen Long. The white peach wine was an excellent fruit wine. It was refreshing and fragrant. It tasted soft and did not burn one's throat. Chen Long poured a cup for Lisa as well. Recently, Fang Ping's team has been behaving strangely. They are all in pairs. I think it's more important to improve our strength now. Lisa, what do you think? Lisa took the glass. I think it's because no one asked for you. Ha ha ha, let's drink. Chen Long was quite handsome. He had a good personality and a high status. If he really wanted to date, many girls would be willing. A thin layer of black robe would not affect anything. Chen Long said as he drank, the journey to the snowy mountain was a little unexpected. I thought it would be very difficult. I didn't expect that other than the troublesome wild beasts and undead, there were no gnomes or trolls, and we didn't encounter many magical beasts. It's been quite a peaceful journey. Fang Ping looked at them. This was called calm? When I came to Snowy Mountain in the past, there were gnomes everywhere. I killed until my hands were tired. There were also many high-level gnomes. They were hidden among ordinary gnomes, powerful and cunning. Now, let alone gnome professionals, I haven't even seen a single gnome fur. Fang Ping recalled the gnome bandit whom he had picked up during the night watch a few days ago. Teacher Elsa seemed to have said the same thing. The gnome tribe had been destroyed by God. Hearing Chen Long's words, many people were killed. Even the undead can appear at the foot of the fog mountain. Is it rare for the gnomes to disappear? That's right. It makes sense. Too many strange things have happened recently, and I'm a little used to it. I wouldn't be surprised if I were to say that the undead and the elves are allied. Lisa thought for a moment, then nodded. It doesn't seem impossible. Speaking of the undead, the elf city has recently caught many vampires. They all have concealment potions. The concealment potion is prohibited. There's no large-scale war now. There must be an elf in the upper echelons providing it to the undead. Fang Ping sat at the side and listened to Chen Long and Lisa chat. He listened quietly and drank. They are well connected, and they had many sources of information. Fang Ping did not know anything. As he drank and listened, he felt a little sleepy. Team, get ready to go. Elsa's voice sounded. Chen Long patted Fang Ping's shoulder. Let's go. I'll look for you for a drink next time. Okay. Fang Ping kept the cup in his bag. Anyway, there was good wine to rub off on him. It was fine as long as he was happy. Fang Ping, think about it. Okay. Lisa was gone, too. Fang Ping carried his backpack on his back, stood up, and used his characteristics in the coniferous forest not far away. The last time he walked in the coniferous forest, the goblin poison archer was hidden among them. If not for Fengling blocking the arrows, he would have almost been shot to death by the hidden arrows. Now that he was going to enter the coniferous forest again, he had to be more cautious. Failure granted by characteristics. Target spirit, not the person. He threw the characteristics over one by one. Sure enough, there was something waiting inside. Miss Elsa, there are ghosts in the coniferous forest. The Vatican walked in front, the Lord's Guard on the left, and the Machete City Guards on the right. Fang Ping's team was in the middle, heading toward the coniferous forest. There were basically no weeds in the coniferous forest. The trees were very tall, and the slender dark green coniferous leaves were layered. One could see the sky, but it was still very dark. Every tree was a few meters apart. Other than being a little darker, walking was completely unaffected. The ghost he had just seen was no longer in sight. The forest was quiet, and rustling insects were moving through the dark corners. The temperature here was slightly higher, and there were more traces of life. Stepping on the soft needles instead of the uneven dirt road, it was very comfortable to walk. However, Fang Ping was not in the mood. 200 no damage. It was fine to come in and fight the undead, but they had disappeared. This was not a good thing. The undead did not know that they had been discovered, so they would not escape. They must be hiding somewhere. Jiang Yu's characteristics could only be used tomorrow. If there is another large-scale lightning strike spell, he would not be able to do anything. Fang Ping kept using special ability enhancement to search for the undead in the coniferous forest, but he could not find them. The team moved slowly. There were scouts scouting a little further away, and everyone was looking around warily. That's strange. There's really nothing. Fang Ping felt very puzzled. When he walked into the coniferous forest, he could no longer see the undead. He looked deeper into the coniferous forest but could not see them either. They were all not there. Could it be that they had flown? He looked up at the sky. The straight conifer tree. The noon sun shone on the top of the tree. The dark green leaves were covered in a layer of gold. The leaves of the coniferous tree were slender and could not hide anything. There was no snow here either. He wouldn't be hiding in the snow like Harvey the gnome. Or were they hiding underground? Fang Ping lacked theoretical knowledge and did not have much understanding of the undead. According to Fang Ping's previous understanding, the undead should not have a physical body and could hide casually in the trees and soil. However, in this world, if one wanted to pass through trees and burrow into the ground, they needed to have a characteristic to permeate. Ghosts did not have this characteristic. Oh right, if they were just digging holes in the ground and the trees were cut open, it was not impossible for them to hide in them. Of course, the others had also thought of this possibility. The Vatican had summoned a row of normal-level creatures to investigate the traps, pits, and trees at the front. The temperature here is not right. Stay vigilant. Teacher Elsa's voice rang out. Fang Ping quickly gripped his cane tightly. The temperature was not right. Was it an ice spirit? Before Elsa could finish speaking, a large group of blue ice spirits and cold spirits floated out of the pit. They waved their wispy arms, and blue ice arrows appeared out of thin air and flew past the soldiers at the periphery. Their target was Fang Ping's team. There were more than 100 spirits. This round of attacks was not something Fang Ping's team could withstand. The Prayer of Life. Life Forbidden Spell. Life Forbidden Spell. Devil Armor Forbidden Spell. The Vatican in front of them was also very fast. Golden light flashed around them, and everyone was blessed with at least 2 skills. Fang Ping was just about to use the magic armor forbidden spell on himself when 3 purplish-blue magic shields surrounded him. He put down his staff. The dense ice arrows smashed down, and blue and white ice shards splattered everywhere. All kinds of light shone, and gorgeous fireworks were lit in the dark conifer forest. The crossbowmen immediately counterattacked. Arrows pierced through the spirit's body one after another. The color of the ice spirit's body, which was opaque to begin with, faded, and some disappeared. They are all summoned creatures. Continue to be vigilant. Fang Ping's team, shrink the formation. Upon hearing Elsa's words, Fang Ping noticed that the ice spirit and the cold spirit both had a hexagram mark on them. After summoning more than 100 spirits, their number of summoners would not be small. What was the use of the ice spirit? Killing Fang Ping's team by force? It did not seem to mean much. The weakness of Fang Ping's team makes them more valuable keeping than destroying it. Because if they let them free, the others would have to divert their attention to protect the team. Fang Ping looked at the Vatican in front of him. They turned around and looked at Fang Ping's team. Wasn't he just diverting his attention to protect her now? This was the undead's goal, right? Attack Fang Ping's team, let the team stay where they were, and attract everyone's rest. Stay where you are. Fang Ping raised his head and looked above him. The tree was swaying slightly. Something was coming. Black shadows floated down from the top of the tree, landed around the team, and landed in the middle of the crowd. Ah! A shrill scream sounded. The white cloth on the terror spirit's body rolled. Terror had taken effect. Feature Fear. There is a 1/4 probability every 10 seconds that a random summoned creature within the range will cancel its summoning, or an enemy will enter a state of fear and be unable to move. Duration, 10 seconds. Mags, thick fog. A large area of fog filled the air, and the terror spirit's attacks were stopped. They stuck close to the soldiers and were unable to pull away. At the same time, the soldiers entered a state of fear and could not move at all. Fang Ping looked at the white fog and the terror spirits mixed with the soldiers. He did not know what would happen next. With 3 legendary big shots holding the line, they would not lose, but how many people would die? Fang Ping held his cane. He wanted to use Purification and Life Forbidden spell, but he did not know who to use it on. He vaguely recalled the time when he was lying in the carriage in the cave tunnel. The vice-captain of the Lord's Guards muttered beside him. Being a forbidden spellcaster could not save humans. Fang Ping also felt a sense of powerlessness now. There were so many people. How many could he save? After a while, the terror spirit's shriek sounded again. Many soldiers were afraid and could not move. The thick fog had already slowly faded in this empty place. When the fog disappeared, the battle would begin. The crossbowmen who were close to him, the combat nuns who did not have superimposed faith, and the Lord's guards who did not have a distance to charge. The disadvantage was too great. Converge. Fang Ping's team was located at the center of the team. Archbishop Fao walked to Fang Ping's team and gave the order. As the fog became fainter, Fang Ping could see Archbishop Fao clearly. She was standing diagonally in front of Fang Ping. The metal-shelled book in her hand was slowly opened. The edges of the golden red book that was engraved with complicated patterns lit up with golden light. As the book was opened, a translucent light wave passed through Fang Ping's body like a ripple on the surface of a lake, expanding continuously. The ripples did not affect Fang Ping, but when they reached the outer circle and hit the ghosts, their colors faded a little. A super large-scale attack. The fact that Archbishop Fao could attack meant that the effect of the fog had disappeared. The terror spirit also attacked. Its pitch-black palm threw out shadow bullets that hit the soldiers without any reaction. Everyone's luck was so good that they all dealt 0 damage. It's most definitely not the case. Archbishop Fao's body kept shining with white light as she was being healed. Characteristic protection, everyone, attack. The Archbishop's words resolved the soldiers' doubts. With someone taking the damage for them, it was no different from being invincible. Everyone fought back. Fang Ping had the protection potion and knew what the protection characteristics was. Looking at Archbishop Fao, she was strong and dedicated. She was really worthy of respect. In the dark coniferous forest, the metal-shelled book glowed with golden light, shining on Archbishop Fao, making her look especially holy. The translucent light wave quickly spread out with Archbishop Fao's body as the center. The ghosts were hit by the light wave, and their bodies became faint. Some ghosts directly disappeared. There was no need to worry about being injured. The soldiers' counterattack was even bolder. The crossbowmen fired at close range. The crossbow bolts passed through the ghosts and pierced their teammates at the back, but they were not injured at all. Someone would bear the injuries for them. 201 Guess is mistake. Archbishop Fao was constantly injured, and at the same time, she was quickly healing. Deacons, bishops, combat nuns, holy knights, and the 100-strong Vatican team basically all had special healing abilities. However, the stronger the characteristic, the greater the price to pay to use it. He did not know what the price to pay for such a large range of protection characteristic was. The white circle of light that was still rippling rapidly reduced the number of ghosts. As long as Archbishop Fao could still withstand the injuries, humans would not lose. A glorious victory. The terror spirit had no intention of escaping. It fought until everyone died. As for humans, there were no casualties. Archbishop Fao slowly closed the thick book in her hand. The golden light receded, and the white light of healing slowly stopped. She walked towards the Vatican team in front. Clean up the battlefield. Van Helsing's voice sounded, and the guards of Machete City began to clean up the battlefield. After the terror spirit died, the tattered white cloth lost its support and fell to the ground. Black balls of light floated in the air. These were the only spoils of war. He could eat the same soup as yesterday again, right? However, the color this time should be black. Black seemed even more disgusting than green. Fang Ping shook his head. He did not want to think about it. His gaze landed on the carriage behind him. Only now did Fang Ping realize that the horse carriage was actually an alchemy product. It had a special characteristic with a decent attack power. No spirits attacked the carriage. That was not their target. The collection of spoils of war was very fast. What took more time was actually the recovery of crossbow bolts. Fang Ping sat on the ground and rested. He looked at the people from the heavenly selection class in front of him. Most of them were in low spirits. Fang Ping's heart was calm. He even wanted to laugh. Look at all of you mocking me earlier, saying that you're too weak and will only be a burden on the battlefield. Now, everyone in the team has become a burden. Fang Ping did not mind. He was used to it, but others did not have such an experience, especially the advanced students in the front. This was probably their first time experiencing the feeling of being a burden. It was good to experience it as soon as possible. They had to learn from their shame. The team quickly set off. After a fight, they set off again. They were much more relaxed. If they really fought, the possibility of encountering danger in the future would be much lower. Fang Ping looked at the sky. There were no clouds in the clear sky. The sun shone on the top of the conifer tree, drawing a circle of gold on it. Now that his mentality had changed, the feeling of looking at the scenery was different. If he slept here, it would definitely be very comfortable. Lying on the soft conifers on the ground, his surroundings were quiet and dark. When he opened his eyes, it was a bright sky. when he closed his eyes. Fang Ping did not know what it meant to close his eyes. This coniferous forest was smaller than Fang Ping had estimated. After walking for a while, he felt that the trees had become sparser. The coniferous trees slowly decreased, and the sunlight could shine down. The forest ground became brighter, and some low bushes appeared between the trees. Now Fang Ping knew. No wonder the undead wanted to ambush them in front. After walking here, the field of vision was wide and the visibility was high. It would be very difficult to ambush them. This was Qingniao's paradise again. He walked and stopped and picked a lot of wild vegetables. There were also a few plants that were rich in energy. The price was not low. This spirit grass can be used to make the shadow bomb potion. Each one is at least a silver dragon. Unfortunately, the energy dissipated too quickly. I can only eat it directly. What a waste. Qingniao pinched a tiny blackweed and was about to put it in its mouth when it shook its head and stuffed it into the cloth bag. Qingniao, I feel that you not only know how to find wild vegetables, but you also know a lot about these alchemy herbs. Qingniao scratched his head, a little embarrassed. Actually, before I awakened, my dream was to become an alchemist. Young Master Asher was an apprentice alchemist. He was the young master of the Red Cloud Chamber of Commerce that I used to study with. Sometimes, when he went out to attend gatherings, he would ask me to do his homework for him. He would identify and classify some alchemy herbs, so I know a little. Alchemy. Fang Ping was also interested in alchemy. This was a supernatural science. Putting together a bunch of plant roots, animal blood, and so on, it turned into a bottle of medicine with supernatural abilities. It was indeed magical. By the way, Qingniao, what is used to concoct the healing potion? Qingniao shook his head. The method of making healing potions is unique to the Vatican. I don't know either. Oh well. The Vatican? They had indeed done in-depth research on healing. Fang Ping was just asking casually. For some reason, he suddenly thought of something else. He stood on his tiptoes and looked in front of the team. Then, he turned around and looked at the carriage behind him. Fang Ping, what's wrong? Fang Ping suddenly felt that something was not right. Qingniao, have you seen any elves? In the carriage. They didn't come out. Fortunately, they weren't discovered by the undead. Otherwise, it would be troublesome to attack the carriage. In the carriage, Fang Ping knew what was strange. According to the conversation between Chen Long and Lisa, the undead had appeared because the second princess, Rachel, had colluded with the undead to kill the eldest princess, Sif. Therefore, the undead here were equivalent to a suicide squad. Their mission was to kill Sif. With Sif dead, they were a gift from the undead lord to Rachel. Equivalent exchange. However, Sif was still in the carriage and did not show her face. What did these undead mean by fighting to the death with humans? There's no point. Perhaps Chen Long and the others were wrong. There was another reason for the undead to appear here. Fang Ping, what's wrong? What happened? Fang Ping shook his head. I'm fine. Qingniao lowered his head to look for wild vegetables and various medicinal herbs. Fang Ping wore the tranquil heart necklace and absorbed energy along the way since it was better than nothing. One thing after another happened during this period of time. Fang Ping recalled that 2 months ago, when he had just joined the Silver Heron team, he had gone to eat with Collie and Endre. Collie said that the world was safe. All the races had signed peace agreements and would not go to war. Endre said that the continent was in turmoil. Cracks appeared among the various races, and disputes were endless. A war was about to break out at any moment. The two of them even quarreled over this. At that time, he did not know who was right. Until now, Fang Ping only wanted to laugh. There was no need to argue about this question at all. Collie should still walk out and take a look. Staying in the Elf City and the Silver Heron team was still too small a worldview. Along the way, the undead, elves, gnomes, trolls, dwarfs, dragons, demons, and humans had no peace agreements. Every race was fighting to the death. It was one or the other. In the blink of an eye, many things had happened in the past 2 months. The coniferous forest ended here. If they continued forward, they would reach the deciduous broad-leaved forest. It was the snow moon now, but the trees here were still green. The temperature here was obviously higher. If not for the fact that he was worried about encountering danger and needed to wear protective equipment, Fang Ping would have worn shorts. It was too hot. The Vatican at the front would occasionally engage in battles with some magical beasts. Magical beasts followed their instincts, but they were not fools. They would not specially block the way to die. The stupid magical beasts had already died. Soon, Fang Ping knew why the magical beasts were blocking the way. There was a water source ahead. In the gaps between a few rocks was a spring. White water gurgled out and steam rose, carrying a strong stimulating smell. 202 The undead are here again. There was more than one spring in the forest. There were 7 to 8 springs on both sides of the road. The spring water gathered and turned into a hot spring river. Compared to the hot spring river in Fire Dragon City, it was much thinner. Moreover, by the smell, one could forget about taking a shower. However, this water seemed to be quite attractive to magical beasts. Many magical beasts gathered around and stared at humans. Most of them were hell demon wolves that had special run characteristics. It was too troublesome to kill them. Otherwise, they would have been dinner today. Under the heat of this hot spring river, the surrounding vegetation were lush and growing well. Yee! A big bird stood on a branch and called out to the humans. The branch was only 2 to 3 meters from the ground. It stood quietly and looked at the humans. Characteristics endowment failed. Target: 3 yellow leaf rainbow tail colored crown demon sparrow, not the person. That's a long name. Fang Ping raised his head and looked at the big bird. It was more than a meter long and its entire body was light yellow. The colorful crown feathers on its head were thin and long. Its tail feathers were colorful and hung down from the branches, almost within reach. It was a very beautiful magical beast. Chen Long in front retreated and came to Fang Ping's side. Fang Ping, you should know its name, right? 3 yellow leaf rainbow tail. 3 yellow leaves? It's actually a legendary creature. Shockley said that this is the most beautiful demon sparrow he's ever seen on the continent. We actually met it. It's indeed beautiful. Shockley, Knight Shockley's Travels on the Continent. It's quite an interesting book. I've seen it before, but I've never heard of this name. I have an impression of the most beautiful demon sparrow. Rainbow demon sparrow, I think it's called this. That's shorthand. Actually, that's it. Fang Ping looked at the demon sparrow above his head. According to Shockley, it was a rare magical beast with a gentle personality. Moreover, it was very beautiful, especially when it flew, leaving colorful shadows behind it. Just this name. The feedback given by the characteristic was different from what Fang Ping knew. Fang Ping was also exploring the principles given by characteristics. The rainbow demon sparrow stood quietly and watched the humans pass before leaving. Self-destruction and flawless barrier characteristic. With the enhancement of these two characteristics, no creature was willing to provoke it. Why court death by self-destructing at the legendary level? Fang Ping, aren't you just an ordinary student? Aren't you going to study with them? Chen Long continued to walk beside Fang Ping, teasing him and pointing at the hot spring river. 5 or 6 people walked along the hot spring river, bending down and looking for sulfur grass. Sulfur grass grew beside hot springs with a stimulating smell and could be used to make fireball potions. It was also the main material for signal flares. More importantly, after it was dried, it could be stored for a long time without affecting its use. This was also the reason why so many people were looking for it. It was not that there were no expensive herbs on the way, but it was inconvenient to carry them. He did not know how long it would take to return to the human city. He could only eat them directly to increase the weak energy. It was extremely wasteful. Fang Ping looked at them and shook his head. Forget it. 1 copper horn for each blade. There are so many people. My eyes are not as good as theirs. I won't waste time. After walking for a while, the hot spring river beside him slowly widened and became larger. The temperature did not decrease. A gust of wind blew, and there was a heat wave. There was also a spring at the bottom of the river, constantly replenished by hot water. This was a fracture zone, right? There were so many hot springs. Fang Ping felt extremely hot, and so did Qing Niao, who was walking by the river. He would walk back from time to time to catch his breath. He was covered in sweat, like a sauna. Fang Ping was worried that he would get a heat stroke. Oh yes, Andre was also among them. Andre had been closer to Feng Ling and Red Camellia Snake recently, and their relationship got better. Red Camellia Snake and Feng Ling seemed to have reached an agreement. They no longer undermined each other and fought tit for tat. Instead, they often saw the two of them chatting and laughing. They were very close. The effect was that Andre spent a lot of time with them now and rarely came to look for Fang Ping and Qing Niao. Walk out of the hot spring forest. The river air is in front. We'll reach the forest of elves soon. Chen Long, have you been to the forest of elves? No. Before Chen Long could finish speaking, he was interrupted by a roar from ahead. Elsa said, "Everyone, be on guard." Fang Ping quickly put on his helmet and gripped his cane tightly. The undead were here again. However, ever since they encountered the undead, Fang Ping's team could not participate in the battle. After slacking off the entire time, Fang Ping was happy to have nothing to do. He did not have to be a commander anymore. The trees in the hot spring forest grew along the river. On both sides of the river, the land was flat and the view was wide. The carriage stopped. Fang Ping grabbed the carriage frame, hoisted it up, and looked ahead. Densely packed black undead appeared in the distance. They surged over aggressively along the river bank. As far as he could see, he could not see the end of the undead. So many. How many undead were there? Moreover, a large group of skeleton warriors was extremely terrifying and restricted mags from using large-scale spells. Otherwise, unless one had a golden body, they would definitely die if dozens or hundreds of death curses erupted. Xiang Yu's golden body transmission could be used, but against the overwhelming undead, it was still useless for the golden body that lasted for 30 seconds only. The undead were still far away. This time, they did not play any tricks. Their strategy was to fight head-on. One by one, the horses were moved out of the carriages and placed on both sides of the line. At the front of the team were the Holy Knights of the Vatican. They raised their large shields and propped them on the ground. They turned their bodies to the side and prepared to receive the impact of the undead. The crossbowmen of the Machete City's guards stood on both sides of the nuns. They raised their crossbows, loaded them, and waited solemnly. The other melees were cutting down the trees on both sides to prevent the undead from circling around from the blind spot. Fang Ping's team retreat to avoid being affected by the battle. In the following battles, Fang Ping's team could not interfere. They could only stay far away, lest they distracted the team and had to be taken care of. Under teacher Elsa's instructions, Fang Ping's team followed the carriage and slowly retreated. Fang Ping could see many people clenching their fists, looking indignant. From the carriage, the elf stepped out. Sif stood on the carriage, discovered by the undead. Their roars were even louder, and they increased their speed. With all kinds of skills, black waves surged and collided. All troops, defend, attack! Streaks of holy light and arrows were drowned in the black wave. The horses on both sides were instantly torn apart. The paladin's line of defense was like a dam, holding onto its spot and blocking the first wave of impact. Empty heads and pale arms came through the gap between the shields, bearing their fangs and claws. The paladin did not move. He still leaned against the shield and let the skeleton scratch his body. This scene did not last long. The undead wave behind continued to push over, piled up one by one. The wave was about to cross the dam and surge back. Saint Realm. A golden circle of light appeared. The edge of the circle of light happened to be at the feet of the paladin. The skeleton warriors and zombie guards in front of them stepped on each other and piled up into a tall wall in front of the paladin. 203 Finale. Their limbs intertwined and struggled. A white bone head squeezed out of the zombie's rotting stomach. 4 to 5 thigh bones in all directions gathered together like blooming flowers. It was too disgusting. The corners of Fang Ping's mouth twitched. This was too much of a drop in his sanity value. It was a complete visual pollution. The level of the undead soldiers was not high. Most of them were normal and excellent. One arrow could kill them instantly, but it took time. As long as they were not killed by the holy light, skeletons would revive, zombies would revive, and ghosts would revive. The sea of undead did not just mean that there were a lot of them at the beginning. Moreover, they could not be killed. Fang Ping's team watched from afar. The threat of the death curse made them not dare to approach. The undead followed the light circle of the sacred zone and moved to the two sides. The steps of the melee undead were blocked by the sanctuary, but the long-range attacks did not stop. Cold spirits, terrifying spirits, skeleton spearmen, elemental bullets, and spears smashed over densely. Burn, fireball, ring of ice, poison mist, lightning strike, instant strike, split. Fang Ping watched as the soldiers in front of him were overwhelmed by all kinds of attacks. He could not help but feel worried. Could they really win? It should be possible. After all, the 3 legendary figures had yet to attack. Teacher Elsa stood in front of the team and had no intention of playing. Since they were so calm, they should be fine. After all, their lives were in their hands. Everyone would be very cautious. Archbishop Fao walked to the middle of the Vatican's team. She was not tall, but she was especially eye-catching. Chen Long stood at the side and said, "The undead's luck is also bad. They probably didn't expect that the Vatican was also here." Moreover, Archbishop Fao even brought the Book of Revelation, a holy nova. This is the true nemesis of the undead. Holy nova? Chen Long nodded. The characteristic of the Book of Revelation, sacred nova. It attacks all enemies within a 10-meter radius. The damage dealt cannot be reduced. The target killed cannot activate the ability rebirth, resurrection, or skeleton. Large-scale holy damage. That's right. There are only a handful of people in the Vatican who can use the Book of Revelation. She is one of them. However, it's said that the cost of using the Book of Revelation is not low. As Chen Long spoke, Archbishop Fao had already opened the book. It was blocked by the crowd, so Fang Ping did not see it, but the dazzling golden light in the book had already burst out. Immediately after, a semi-transparent circle of light rippled like water. The undead that had piled up into a high wall stuck to the outer edge of the sacred zone. After being touched by the halo, they were like dominoes that had been knocked down. The high wall disintegrated, and a large number of bones separated. They dismembered independent parts and fell to the ground. The circle of light continued to spread out. Some of the undead it touched were still running, but they immediately scattered into a pile of broken bones. Some spirits simply disappeared. After this circle of light passed, the dense undead became sparse. At least hundreds of undead and summoned creatures were eliminated. The low-level undead all disappeared. The level 3 and 4 undead were still around, but they had lost their numerical advantage. The outcome of the subsequent battle could be foreseen. The Vatican's profession itself was a counter to them. The highest level of the undead team was only at the Class 4 epic grade. There were no legendary experts. With the Vatican holding the fort, the threat they brought was not as great as wild beasts. They would stay where they were and wait for the undead to come and die. The holy light of the combat nun would eliminate everything undead wherever it pointed. The undead had no intention of escaping. Even though they knew that they were going to die, they still rushed forward until the last ghost dissipated. All of them were wiped out. A glorious victory. Corpses of the undead covered the ground. A portion of the hot spring river that reached his calves was directly filled. Water flowed to the riverbank, and the smell was even more pungent. Fang Ping jumped down from the carriage and hung from the beam. His hands were numb from gripping it. The machete city guards were cleaning up the battlefield while Fang Ping's team rested on the spot. This battle was a little anticlimactic and ended very quickly. Most importantly, it was targeted by the characteristic Holy Nova. Otherwise, it would be very troublesome to deal with so many undead. It would be even more difficult to reduce the casualties. Fang Ping sat a little further away, watching Qing Niao and the others search for sulfur grass by the river, waiting for the team to set off. The eldest princess, Sif, came out of the carriage and was talking to Archbishop Fao. The target of the lightning strike just now was the Vatican. Perhaps it was because Sif was too far away. Fang Ping still felt strange. These undead were a group of suicide squads. They knew that they were going to die, but they did not think of a way. Wouldn't it be good to attack from the front and use the lightning strike spell to strike the carriage from the side? The undead were a race, not fools. Looking at the two women who were chatting and laughing, these two were not simple. This was Beck's long-awaited visit to the Silver Heron team. Ever since the second young master went out and left the Silver Heron team, Beck had not come for a long time. The Black Tiger gang had recently hunted a few normal long-haired demon cows. These were good leather for making armor. Beck took them and handed them to Hedge. They were all the future hope of the Black Tiger gang. No, it couldn't be said that way. In order to protect ordinary people, the city defense army had killed a few long-haired demon cows that were causing trouble near the elf city to ensure the safety of the people. The leather had been damaged by the swords and couldn't be used. It had been thrown away. In any case, no one would really investigate carefully. Beck, why are you here in person? Beck stood at the door of 122 Flower Garden and looked into the courtyard. The grass was long and a little messy, and the leaves were yellowing. He heard a sound behind him. It was Hedge. Just get someone to bring it over. Why did you specially make a trip? Beck handed over the few pieces of cowhide in his hand. I'm on leave today. I happen to be here to collect protection fees, so I brought them over to you. Thank you, Brother Beck. It's so big. I should be able to make 2 sets of normal level leather armor. How's your current strength? Speaking of this, Hedge had a confident smile on his face. I already have more than 700 energy points and my smite has been upgraded to excellent grade. I estimate that in 2 months, I will be able to advance to a Class 2 warrior. Beck nodded. 4.5, close to 5 months. You're faster than I was back then. I was just lucky to meet Ivan. The team provided more resources this year. Otherwise, it would have taken at least half a year. Okay. Beck looked back at the yard. The clutter made him uncomfortable. He wanted to ask Hedge to find someone to trim it, but he thought about it and didn't say anything. Second young master would be unhappy. The team set off along the hot spring river. By the roadside, bones and rotten meat piled up into small mountains. Fang Ping used 2 small strips of cloth to cover his nose. Skeletons and spirits did not smell, but zombies really did stink. The pungent smell mixed with the high temperature emitted by the hot spring river and achieved the compounding smell effect. Moreover, the temperature here was so high that Fang Ping could not even imagine what it would taste like when they rotted and fermented again. It was a proper biochemical weapon. As the team moved forward, the hot spring river flowed for a few kilometers. The number of springs and tributaries that converged decreased, and the pungent smell slowly faded. Qingniao walked back in disappointment. There's no more sulfur grass here. What a pity. I've only picked 5. Yarbo is better. He picked a dozen. There was a small river at the side that flowed horizontally and intersected with the hot spring river. The 2 small rivers turned into a slightly larger river. Fang Ping stretched out his hand and tested it. The river water was icy cold, and the enthusiasm in front of him had been exhausted. The temperature here was a little colder than before. The surrounding trees became sparse. As far as the eye could see, there was a vast yellow-green grassland. Rivers flowed down the grassland. He turned around and looked at the snowy mountain behind him. The tall mountain peak stood on the horizon, but he still could not see the panorama. It blocked the cold wind from Gobi Highlands. On both sides of the mountain, there were 2 worlds. He did not know how high the snowy mountain was. If there was a chance in the future, he had to come back and take a look. The terrain was getting slower and slower. It should be about time to go down the mountain. The team kept walking along the river. On one hand, the land was flat and easy to walk on. On the other hand, it was an additional meal. The probability of encountering magical beasts around the river was higher than elsewhere. The total number of people in the team was close to 500. The daily consumption of meat was huge. Under normal circumstances, the magical beast meat would be given priority to the commanders, captains, and Fang Ping's team in the army. Fang Ping's team had always been specially taken care of. To most soldiers, Fang Ping's team represented hope. They were basically all Class 3, but the probability of them advancing to Class 4 epic rank professionals was minimal. Therefore, they were more willing to leave their hopes to Fang Ping's team. Fang Ping and the others escorted the elf princess. Along the way, there were all kinds of potions and tools. There was no danger like before. They passed through Snowy Mountain and returned to the Forest of Elves. Fang Ping and the others also received the reward for this mission. Fang Ping and Moon Bell received this remuneration and lived a blissful life, traveling through thousands of worlds. End.